Talk about low-key heartbreaking. Our main character Ping An is a literal ghost watching his wife Shen Baiwei burn alive with his corpse. He is drowning in regret because their marriage was just for business. But back then, Shen Baiwei was completely obsessed with him. She would give him the world. If he wanted a $10 million hypercar, it would literally show up the next day. When he got sick, she stayed up all night, yet he treated her like absolute trash just to humiliate her. He even eloped with his toxic childhood friend Jiang Mingyou, biggest mistake ever. Jiang Mingyou was just using him, pure revenge over some old family feud. He got Ping An kidnapped and threatened Shen Baiwei, demanding she cut off one of her fingers every single day. Shen Baiwei actually did it without hesitation. By day 10, she sent her final finger, still wearing her wedding ring. That is when Ping An absolutely broke down and bit his tongue to end it. He died, but his soul watched as the usually calm Shen Baiwei completely lost her mind over his body. She got her revenge by having her guards break every single bone in Jiang Mingyou's body. Then she threw away her entire billion-dollar empire and died in a fire with his corpse, begging him to love her next life. It was painful to watch. Ping An's soul was crying his eyes out as the flames consumed them. But wait, plot twist. He opens his eyes and realizes he just regressed back to their first year of marriage. He is literally crying tears of joy, swearing he will treat her right this time around. He blocks the toxic childhood friend, cooks her breakfast, and waits for her to come home every night. But here is the catch. Shen Baiwei is completely different now. She treats him with pure coldness. She even got herself a college student boy toy named Gu Li, who suddenly needs a liver transplant. Shen Baiwei literally forces Ping An's mother onto the operating table for it. When Ping An begs on his knees, she locks him away. 3 days later, she stands before him with a look of absolute disgust. She coldly says the surgery succeeded, and she is staying at the hospital to take care of her darling Gu Li. Looking at the woman who once died for him, Ping An finally breaks down and asks why she changed. Why does she not love him anymore? She stops and coldly replies that they are just business partners. When did she ever love him, she asks. The door slams, leaving him crying on the floor. It makes no sense. She loved him so much before, but now she almost kills his mother for some guy. Fine, if she does not care, he will just let go. He drags his exhausted body to the hospital. He finds his mother still unconscious, looking terribly pale with her oxygen mask on. Standing there, his heart aches. Suddenly, his father rushes through the door, looking completely exhausted. He clearly flew back from abroad in a hurry, his suit messy and tie completely crooked. Ping An falls to his knees, crying and apologizing, saying it is all his fault. His father pulls him up quickly, telling him to stop kneeling on the cold floor. He reassures him that none of this is his fault, while Ping An continues to sob. His father reveals that Shen Baiwei was actually the one who begged for this marriage for years. It is so confusing. Everyone knew she adored him, so why the sudden shift? Ping An takes a deep breath. He decides he wants a divorce so they can move their family business abroad and leave this city behind forever. His father looks between him and his sick mother, finally asking if he really has stopped loving her. Clenching his fists until they bleed, Ping An whispers that he cannot love her after what she did. His father sighs deeply, knowing there is no turning back, and agrees to the plan. He tells Ping An to go handle the immigration paperwork while he takes care of things here. Ping An heads out, and the paperwork actually goes smoothly. The outside sunshine feels blindingly bright. Just as he thinks it is finally over, a sharp screech of brakes echoes. He gets violently hit by a car. Waking up in extreme pain, he sees Shen Baiwei looking down at him with nothing but cold disgust. She sneers, asking if he is faking an accident just because his rival Gu Li got into one. She tells him his acting is useless since they have zero feelings. She has no time for him. Before he can even explain, her assistant walks in carrying a bowl of porridge. Shen Baiwei casually grabs the takeout box, pops the lid, and immediately frowns because it is seafood porridge. He demands another one because of a seafood allergy, hitting our main character, Ping An, like a total thunderbolt. In their past life, Baiwei only found out about Ping An's life-threatening allergy during their second year of marriage. But they have only been married a year. Connecting this to Baiwei's sudden coldness and his obvious favoritism toward Gu Li, a wild theory crosses Ping An's mind. Shaking all over, he asks if Baiwei also regressed from the future. Baiwei just scowls. Regressed? What do you mean? Baiwei asks. Ping An presses him on how he knew about the allergy, but Baiwei does not even blink. He claims Ping An's parents gave him a notebook of preferences and he just casually memorized it. Honestly, it is a perfect cover story and it completely breaks Ping An's heart.
Did he just overthink it? Suddenly, a nurse rushes in saying Gu Li is awake. Without a single backward glance, Baiwei abandons him.
During his 3 days in the hospital, Baiwei never shows up once. Even the nurses look at him with pure pity. It feels like a silent mockery of how pathetic he is. On day 4, he checks out alone. His immigration papers are ready. Now, he just needs a divorce. Sitting at his desk, drafting the divorce papers feels like ripping his own chest open. It is low-key heartbreaking to watch. The terms are simple. He wants absolutely nothing but his freedom. Then his phone buzzes with a social media update from Gu Li. It is a picture of Baiwei at his desk with Gu Li standing right behind him, wrapping his arms around his shoulders. The caption boasts about how the boss never allows outsiders in his office, yet broke his rule for Gu Li. Ping An just stares at the screen, totally frozen. In their past life, Baiwei used to break all his rules for Ping An, even eating spicy food until he needed his stomach pumped. He was a massive germaphobe, but carried a drunk Ping An home, and even did public interviews despite hating the spotlight. Pushing the memories aside, he grabs the paperwork and heads to the Shen Group headquarters, still trying to figure out how to bring up the divorce. As he passes the office, Baiwei's assistant stops him, totally surprised to see him. Ping An just nods and says he needs Baiwei's signature. Looking at Ping An's pale, exhausted face, the assistant offers to take the document inside for him to save him the trouble. Ping An hands it over with a quick thank you. The assistant slips the divorce paper into a pile of business documents and knocks on the door. But when the door swings open, Ping An literally freezes. Baiwei is right there, lovingly massaging Gu Li's shoulders with a sweet smile. The assistant asks for signatures, but Baiwei is so distracted by Gu Li that he signs the entire stack of papers without even looking at them. Outside, Ping An clenches his fists. The assistant steps out and hands him the signed divorce papers. Seeing Baiwei's signature, his eyes well up with tears. He whispers a thank you and walks away. While waiting for the elevator, he calls his lawyer. Just a 30-day cooling-off period, and he is finally free. Suddenly, Gu Li calls out to him from behind. Ping An turns to see Baiwei dropping Gu Li's hand, looking completely furious. He grabs Ping An's wrist and barks out, "Who allowed you here? Remember, this is just a business marriage. Don't meddle in my life." Ping An yanks his hand back, coldly promising there won't be a next time. Talk about tension. Gu Li steps in, playing the peacemaker, and invites Ping An to an auction they are attending. He claims he wants to thank Ping An's mother for saving him. Ping An cuts him off, but Gu Li immediately tears up to play the victim. Baiwei snaps at Ping An to stop being ungrateful and just go. Honestly, our boy's just too exhausted to fight back. At the auction, Baiwei commands the room, casually throwing out bids until he wins a sapphire for $5 million. Gu Li is absolutely beaming beside him, gushing over how gorgeous the gem is, and the crowd goes wild. Baiwei gently brushes a stray hair from Gu Li's face. The guests whisper about how insanely spoiled this side piece is. Apparently, Baiwei even gifted him a multi-million-dollar luxury penthouse last month just because he asked. Bro, the favoritism is wild. Ping An grips his bidding card until his knuckles turn white. Gu Li smugly offers to have Baiwei buy him something, but Ping An just shuts him down. Gu Li keeps nagging until the auctioneer bangs the gavel, announcing a very special item on the big screen. The screen lights up and the entire crowd gasps. It is a photo of Gu Li, bruised, battered, and getting humiliated on a filthy bathroom floor. The crowd erupts into gossip. Gu Li turns pale, screaming and crying at them to shut the screen off immediately. He points the finger at Ping An before running out. A furious Baiwei immediately demands to buy up the photos to suppress the scandal. He threatens to bankrupt the auction house if they aren't taken down in 3 seconds, warning the crowd to keep their mouths shut. Finally, he glares at Ping An with pure ice, warning him that he is going to pay for this. Returning to his villa, Ping An is completely dazed. He has no idea how those photos got there, and he'd never do something so petty. But he knows Baiwei will never believe him. He sits in the dark all night until Baiwei kicks the door open, eyes bloodshot with rage. Baiwei chokes him, screaming that Gu Li tried to drown himself because of the photos. Ping An can barely breathe, gasping that he is innocent. Baiwei just sneers, asking if Gu Li leaked his own humiliation. Honestly, this whole situation is an absolute mess. Before he can even speak, Shen Baiwei shuts him down. She coldly warns him that their marriage is just business, yet he keeps hurting. The person she loves most, and now he has to pay. Talk about a knife to the chest, especially since she protected him like this in his past life. Back then, she threatened to ruin anyone who touched Ping An. Now, she is protecting someone else. She demands Lin Ping An to immediately go to the hospital and apologize to Gu Li. Teary-eyed but stubborn, Ping An looks her dead in the eye. He did nothing wrong, so why apologize? But Shen Baiwei just sneers and snaps her fingers. Two massive bodyguards immediately drag Ping An toward the elevator room as she walks away without looking back. She tells them to only let him down once he learns his lesson. Down in the elevator room, Ping An just looks at her in absolute disbelief. To force an apology out of him, she is actually using electroshock therapy. Before he can even process the horror, he's dragged into a freezing basement. They strap his limbs tight, cold leather belts cutting into his skin. The second they flip the switch, pure agonizing electricity jolts through his entire body. He thrashes like a fish out of water, only to be slammed back down by the straps. He bites his own lip raw until blood fills his mouth. They ask if he'll apologize, then crank up the voltage. It feels like 10,000 steel needles are ripping straight through his veins. The pain explodes from his fingertips, straight to his heart. Screaming in absolute agony, he desperately shakes his head, cold sweat gluing hair to his pale face. He still refuses to lie. Why should he apologize when he is innocent? But the next shock is even worse. His vision fades, his entire body convulsing in uncontrollable spasms. After 3, 5, then 10 rounds of torture, he finally breaks. Sobbing uncontrollably as tears and blood mix, he begs them to stop. He admits defeat just to make it end. Dragged to the hospital VIP room, he is met with a cold question asking if he's finally ready to confess. Shen Baiwei is sitting right by the bedside, staring down at him with zero emotion. Ping An's legs are shaking violently, every single step after the electroshock feeling like walking on sharp glass. Leaning on the wall to stay upright while blacking out, he whispers an apology. His voice is totally ruined. He apologizes for posting the photos of Gu Li being bullied. Meanwhile, Gu Li just smirks from the bed, looking pale and fragile. Gu Li plays the ultimate victim, claiming he cannot accept a simple apology because Ping An went way too far. Hearing this, Shen Baiwei immediately holds him close, her voice turning unbelievably gentle. She asks what he wants, and Gu Li suggests Ping An should kneel to show real sincerity. Ping An snaps his head up in shock, but then he meets Shen Baiwei's freezing glare. She coldly asks if he wants another round of electroshock. Terrified, his knees slam heavily onto the hard floor. He apologizes again. Only then does Gu Li smugly shrug it off and say he forgives him. Leaving the room, Ping An almost collapses from exhaustion. He has to lean against the wall for a long time just to drag himself out of there. But that night, Shen Baiwei actually brings Gu Li straight into their marital home. She casually claims his mental health is poor, so he needs to move in, acting like it is totally normal. Ping An has zero energy left to fight. He tells her to do whatever she wants, since they are already divorcing anyway. Soon, this won't even be his home. Be his home anymore? Shen Baiwei frowns, finally noticing how completely broken he seems. But just as she is about to speak, Gu Li tugs her sleeve to interrupt, whining that he is hungry. When she offers to call the maid, he claims he does not want to bother them, yet his eyes are locked straight onto Ping An. He suggests Ping An should cook for him instead. Shen Baiwei immediately turns and demands if he heard. Honestly, this is so incredibly toxic. A legal husband forced to cook for his wife's side piece. Ping An just forces a bitter smile and mechanically heads to the kitchen. Boiling red oil bubbles in the pot. He stares numbly at the bubbling soup. Suddenly, Gu Li sneaks up behind him, asking if the hot pot is ready. Without turning his head, Ping An replies it's almost done. Gu Li leans in, looks at the pot, and complains there are not enough ingredients. But before Ping An can react, Gu Li suddenly grabs his wrist and shoves his hand directly into the boiling hot pot. Extreme pain surges through him as he desperately struggles, hot oil splashing everywhere until he finally manages to pull away. His hand is severely blistered, but Gu Li quickly drips some hot soup onto his own arm and dramatically throws himself onto the floor, crying out. Hearing the noise, Shen Baiwei rushes in. Gu Li immediately starts sobbing, lying that he shouldn't have asked Ping An to cook because it made him angry. He claims Ping An deliberately threw hot soup on him. Shen Baiwei's face darkens instantly as she charges forward and grabs Ping An's burned wrist. She yells at him for being relentless and ignoring her warnings. Ping An is in absolute agony, his face pale. Trembling, he holds up his severely blistered, swollen hand. With a choking voice, he begs her to look at who is actually hurt worse. Shen Baiwei pauses in shock, but Gu Li quickly plays innocent, claiming Ping An splashed him first and then burned himself on purpose to escape blame. Ping An points out there are security cameras in the kitchen, but before Gu Li can even panic, Shen Baiwei sharply interrupts, saying there is no need to check because she trusts Gu Li completely. Hearing this, Gu Li smirks in triumph, throwing Ping An a mocking glare. Ping An's heart is completely shattered, the emotional pain hurting far worse than his burns. Shen Baiwei coldly calls him stubborn and spiteful. She says since he loves scalding people so much, she will let him get a real taste of it, and snaps her fingers. Two bodyguards rush in and grab his other uninjured hand. Ping An struggles in pure terror, screaming that she will regret this. But his warnings fall on deaf ears. Without a shred of mercy, the bodyguards shove his remaining good hand straight into the boiling soup. His agonizing, blood-curdling screams echo through the entire house. When he finally wakes up from the shock, he is back in bed, both hands wrapped in thick bandages. The burning pain is unbearable. His nanny, Aunt Wang, is sitting by his bed with teary eyes, crying over his heavily bandaged hands. She offers to call Shen Baiwei right away, but Ping An weakly stops her. He whispers that she was the one who ordered this. Aunt Wang gasps in sheer horror. People always told Lin Ping An how Shen Baiwei used to secretly stalk him to school just to keep him safe. Tears stream down his face as he wonders how they even got here. He really doesn't get it. And while recovering from his burns, he's forced to watch her pamper her new boy toy, Gu Li, all over social media. We're talking trips to Paris, renting out entire amusement parks, and massive birthday fireworks. Talk about absolutely rubbing it in his face. When she finally comes back with Gu Li, her first words to her actual husband are to plan Gu Li's birthday party as punishment. Seriously, the audacity here is unreal. It's payback for allegedly burning her lover. Honestly, he's just too exhausted to fight back anymore. He nods and agrees, wanting a peaceful exit. For a whole week, he barely sleeps. He uses his raw, unhealed hands to pick every flower and check every detail himself. Even the servants pity him, but nobody dares to help. When the big night arrives, the entire estate is glowing as the elite guests start gossiping. They're literally whispering about how wild it is for a husband to throw a party for his wife's side piece. They think Shen Baiwei is finally in love. He just tunes out the noise from his corner, his eyes locking onto Shen Baiwei standing dead center on the stage. She's wearing a stunning black mermaid dress, constantly checking her watch, visibly anxious for Gu Li to show up. Hours pass, and Gu Li is still a no-show. Her face goes completely cold as she sends her assistant to track him down. The assistant runs back, sweating bullets, with a letter. Gu Li ran away, leaving only a note. Shen Baiwei snatches it, and her expression instantly warps. She literally slams the letter right into Lin Ping An's face, demanding he explain what the hell is going on. He picks up the paper with shaking hands. The letter is from Gu Li, telling Shen Baiwei that by the time she reads this, he'll be gone. The note claims he loves her but had to flee because Lin Ping An threatened his parents' lives. Talk about a massive setup. Lin Ping An numbly hands it back, telling her he didn't do it, but she is not hearing any of it. Shen Baiwei chokes him, spitting that he always plays innocent while doing the worst dirt. He can barely breathe, but refuses to back down. She's convinced he forced her lover away, and get this, to make him talk, she actually has his elderly parents kidnapped. She hangs them off the roof of an abandoned skyscraper by a single thin rope. Bro, this woman is absolutely out of her mind. He's completely breaking down, begging her and screaming that he literally doesn't know where Gu Li went. He pleads with her to spare them, crying that they are completely innocent in all of this. But she just laughs it off, signaling her bodyguard to take out a knife and slowly slice the rope. The sound of the rope fraying destroys his sanity. He drops to his knees, slamming his head against the concrete until it bleeds. He literally swears on his own life that he has absolutely no clue where Gui Li is. He's begging, wishing death upon himself just to prove his innocence, while the bodyguard keeps slicing. Looking at this monster, he wonders if this is really the same woman who sacrificed herself for him in their past life. Just as the rope is about to snap, another guard runs in, yelling they found Gu Li at the airport. She drops him and runs without looking back. The guards scramble to pull his parents up just as the last fiber snaps. He crawls over, grabbing their freezing hands and sob screaming in terror. The brutal rope burns on his mother's wrists are sickening. His father's back is completely shredded from the wall. In the ambulance, his mother wipes his tears, remembering when Shen Baiwei used to care so much. She used to panic over a tiny scratch on his finger. That realization makes him completely break down as sirens pierce the night. Sitting in the hospital hallway, his hands are shaking. Thankfully, the doctor says his parents are just badly shaken, but physically okay. He lets out a quiet sigh of relief, but then loud sobbing echoes down the hall as paramedics rush past with a gurney. Shen Baiwei is lying there covered in blood. Gu Li is holding her hand, absolutely hysterical, begging for her forgiveness. Apparently, she forced a plane to stop to grab him, and he caused a crash by grabbing the wheel. Now that is peak drama. She tells him she'll do literally anything if he stays. Lin Ping'an just turns away, completely numb, focusing only on his parents. He spends his days cooking soup and caring for them, ignoring the constant gossip from the nurses passing by. They're talking about how doting she is, ordering special treats for Gu Li even while she's literally bedridden. His parents look at him with deep worry, but he just sits there quietly peeling an apple like nothing is wrong. He hands them the fruit, telling them he is totally fine because he honestly does not care about her anymore. Once his parents stabilize, his father tells him to go pack. It's finally time for them to leave this toxic mess behind. They're leaving the city for good, and they need to tie up all loose ends before making a clean break. He heads back to the villa to pack, but halfway through, the door swings open and there stands Shen Baiwei. She demands he go to a temple to get a protective amulet for Gu Li because the poor baby is stressed. The nerve of this woman. Normally he would have fought back, but now he just numbly agrees and heads out into the misty mountains. He crawled up 999 stone steps. His knees were bloody, but he felt nothing. When he finally stood up, his eyes caught the ancient Bodhi tree, packed with red wishing plaques gently swaying in the breeze. Curiosity drew him closer, but seeing the actual handwriting on those plaques shocked him like a lightning bolt. Every single red ribbon was a prayer from Baiwei, wishing him safety and happiness. They were all from Baiwei, expressing her deep past love for him. Some of the oldest notes even dated back to their high school days. And the latest one? It was written right before their wedding. Ping'an let out a tired, bitter laugh and walked back inside the temple. But this time, he didn't just grab a safety charm for her lover Gu Li, he actually asked for a marriage talisman too. Borrowing scissors from the monk, he went right back to the Bodhi tree. He carefully snipped down every single love note and threw them into the incense burner, watching them burn to ash. A young monk watched him and asked why, but Ping'an simply replied that he was cutting off worldly ties. After heading down the mountain, he handed the talisman straight to Baiwei. She held them up, staring at him with a deep frown. Ping'an just looked back with dead, peaceful eyes, sincerely wishing that she and Gu Li would grow old together. Hearing his answer, she asked if he really meant that. He nodded, of course. She stared at him for a long moment, seemingly wanting to argue, but she ultimately said nothing and just walked away. A few days later was the family banquet. He originally wanted to skip it, but he needed to say goodbye to Grandpa Shen before leaving for good. He was leaving the country soon and absolutely had to say goodbye. But arriving at the old mansion, he saw Baiwei openly holding hands with her side piece, Gu Li, in front of the entire family. Bringing her little lover to a formal family dinner was a blatant, embarrassing slap in the face. But honestly, our boy didn't even care anymore. He ignored the gossip and walked straight ahead.
He went straight to Grandpa's bedroom. The moment he walked in, he got right to the point, telling him that they were divorcing and he was leaving.
Hearing this, the old man sat up in shock, desperately grabbing his hand. "Child, are you just mad at her? Please listen to me." He insisted she loved him and that the side piece was just a misunderstanding. Ping An only smiled bitterly and told him not to worry about it. His mind was made up. After everything she had done to him recently, her feelings for Gu Li didn't even matter anymore. There was absolutely no going back for them. Sensing his deep pain and firm resolve, Grandpa sighed heavily, whispering that she simply didn't have the fortune to keep him.
He promised that even without the marriage, Ping An would always be his most beloved grandson. He swore that as long as he was breathing, that side piece would never enter their house. His chest tightened with emotion. Even in his past life, Grandpa had protected him just like this. He told the old man to rest, offering to go downstairs and fetch him some warm milk.
He went downstairs to pour it, but returning to the bedroom, he heard a sudden, violent thud from behind the door. A nasty voice snarled, calling the old man a stubborn bastard. It was Gu Li. The absolute trash of a villain was threatening to kill him. Ping An froze, his blood running cold. He kicked the door open and saw a horrifying sight. Gu Li was smothering Grandpa with a pillow, while the poor old man desperately clawed at the sheets, quickly losing strength. Ping An lunged forward, violently slamming Gu Li to the floor. Grandpa's face was already blue and unresponsive. "Help! Call an ambulance!" he screamed, his desperate cries finally drawing a crowd. Baiwei burst in first, her face turning pale. She scooped up her grandfather and ran, throwing a freezing glare at Ping An as she passed. Her eyes were pure ice. Later, under the harsh hospital lights, Ping An sat on a bench, waiting through a grueling, sleepless night. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Meanwhile, Gu Li clung to Baiwei, shooting absolute daggers at Ping An when she wasn't looking. Just as dawn was breaking, the doctor delivered some crushing news. Grandpa had suffered severe oxygen loss and would likely remain in a permanent vegetative state. Enraged, Baiwei violently kicked the door, leaving a massive dent. She dragged them both inside the private ward, her face dark with anger. She demanded to know what happened. Gu Li instantly pointed at Ping An, crying victim and claiming he tried to kill Grandpa. Honestly, this guy's manipulation is insane. Ping An stared in absolute disbelief, telling him to say it again. But Gu Li just sobbed harder, playing the perfect victim. He even claimed Ping An tried to kill him too. Baiwei turned on Ping An with deadly, freezing eyes, asking how he could do this to the grandfather who loved him. Ping An desperately stammered his innocence, but she instantly snapped. "Enough!" she yelled. "You are going to pay for what you did." Bodyguards immediately stepped forward and pinned him down. He begged her to believe him just this once, but she only sneered, completely ignoring his desperate pleas. She coldly ordered them to take him to the highest drop tower. High up in the freezing, pitch-black dawn, he was dragged and tightly bound to the seat. He was absolutely terrified of heights, and she knew it. She coldly told him that was exactly why he needed to learn this lesson. Locking the safety harness herself, she warned him he would only come down when he confessed. Then, the machine slowly began to rise. The machine crept slowly upward. Ping An squeezed his eyes shut, shaking violently like a leaf in the wind as they reached the very peak. Then, a sudden, violent drop. The weightlessness made his heart stop as his tears whipped away in the freezing wind, over and over again. As dawn finally broke on the horizon, they brought him back down. He was barely conscious, his lips bitten raw and bleeding from the terror. Baiwei stood over him, demanding the truth, but Ping An just coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood and blacked out, barely hearing her scream his name in panic. Total darkness swallowed his consciousness. Much later, the sharp, stinging smell of hospital disinfectant slowly woke him up. He opened his eyes to see Baiwei standing there, casually holding 3 plane tickets. She told him he had been causing far too much trouble lately. First hurting Gu Li, now attacking Grandpa? Honestly, Baiwei is blindly trusting the worst villain. She threw the tickets down. She ordered him to take his parents and leave the country. Ping An just stared at the tickets, wanting to laugh out loud. Alright, so in his past life, Shen Baiwei literally cut off a finger for our main character, but now he is exiling him, and our boy just silently takes the ticket. Seeing him comply so easily, Shen Baiwei actually frowns and asks if he has absolutely nothing to say.
Our main character slowly looks up, and trust me, he has a massive list of things he wants to scream at this guy.
He wants to say that Shen Baiwei was a fool for trusting Gu Li, that his grandfather was framed, and that his love was completely wasted. But in the end, he just quietly shakes his head.
Right then, a nurse knocks to report that the homewrecker Gu Li is complaining of chest pains again. Of course, Shen Baiwei immediately promises to go see him, totally brushing our main character off.
He coldly tells our main character that he will personally drive him to the airport to make sure he does not run away. Talk about a massive red flag, right? On the way there, our main character quietly texts his parents, telling them to grab his divorce papers and meet him at the airport immediately. Yes! Finally, he is escaping this toxic marriage. Looking at Shen Baiwei's ice-cold face in the glass window, our main character remembers when he first regressed. He was so desperate to heal their broken relationship back then. He had been so happy to get a second chance, clinging to him like a puppy and loving every little detail, even the way his hands held the steering wheel. But now all of that love is dead. His heart is completely like dead water now. When they arrive at the crowded airport, Shen Baiwei parks and coldly says he will see him inside, completely unaware of what is about to happen.
But just as he prepares to watch our main character walk through security, Gu Li calls. Instantly, Shen Baiwei's cold voice turns incredibly soft as he promises to run right back to his side.
He literally hangs up and walks away without looking back once. Talk about peak trash behavior. Our main character just watches his back disappear into the crowd, then turns and walks over to his parents who are waiting with his freedom. His dad hands him the red divorce booklet. Holding it, a genuine, beautiful smile of pure relief finally appears on his face. He is finally free. And here is the ultimate plot twist. He tears those Paris tickets from Shen Baiwei into tiny shreds, tosses them right into the trash, and buys 3 tickets to Switzerland instead. Oh, the author absolutely cooked with this. As they confidently walk through the boarding gate, they leave that toxic life behind. Meanwhile, Shen Baiwei is rushing back to the hospital. He arrives at the hospital in record time, but just as he steps out of the elevator to head to the ward, a nearby television flashes with a breaking news alert. We have breaking news. Flight MH730 traveling from Jingbei to Paris has tragically crashed shortly after takeoff with no signs of survivors. All 132 passengers on board have perished. Hearing this, Shen Baiwei freezes, his blood turning to ice. MH730 is the exact flight he forced his husband onto. His phone slips from his hand, crashing onto the hard tile floor and shattering into a web of cracks as sheer panic starts setting in. That special ringtone he set for Gu Li is still buzzing, but right now it sounds like a drill grinding straight into his skull. An hour ago, that melody sounded like sweet honey, but now every note feels like a poison thorn. His eyes burn, his vision starting to blur with utter terror. The bold news headline is burned into his brain, the words feeling like liquid fire pouring into his head. He cannot get that horrifying flight number out of his mind. The news broadcast confirms that flight MH730 crashed just 3 minutes after takeoff, leaving absolutely 0 survivors. Dead. Everyone on that plane is dead, and the realization hits him. Lin Ping'an is dead? No, there is no way. This has to be a mistake. Just an hour ago, he was standing right there. He literally just dropped him off at the airport himself. He still remembers his voice, his eyes, even the color of the clothes he wore so vividly. How could someone so full of life just vanish into thin air like that? No, he has to be alive. Completely frantic, he bends down to grab his shattered phone, his hand shaking so violently it takes him an entire minute just to unlock the screen. The flight number that should be high in the sky is right there on the notification bar, marked in blood-red text as crashed. He presses his trembling finger to the glass. A cold, hard numbness climbs up his finger and freezes his entire arm like ice. He feels completely paralyzed, and only now does he realize that his entire body is shaking out of sheer, absolute terror. It feels like the whole building is collapsing around him. He does not even remember running out of the hospital or getting into his car, racing blindly into the stormy night. His black Maybach tears through the rainy highway as he slams the gas pedal down to the floor. With bloodshot eyes glued to the dark road, his mind screams for the car to go faster.
By midnight, the airport is in absolute chaotic ruins. Screams, desperate sobs, and angry shouts are all mixed together as grieving families demand to know why this terrible tragedy happened. People are wailing, demanding their families back, and screaming in pure rage. The overwhelming, crushing weight of their collective grief feels like an invisible giant hand squeezing the very life out of him. He can barely breathe as he desperately pushes through the panicked, crying crowd. Everything around him moves in slow motion, like a waking nightmare that he simply cannot escape. He sees pure, raw agony on every single face around him. Summoning all his remaining strength, he claws his way to the front counter, desperately trying to find his voice. He opens his mouth to ask the staff, but his voice is completely gone from the shock. The clerk looks at his pale face and loudly asks whose family member he is searching for.
Hearing that horrific word, victim, strikes his chest like a heavy hammer, sending a sickening wave of dizziness and ringing straight to his brain.
With deathly pale knuckles, he grips the counter for dear life and croaks out that he is Lin Ping-an's family. He desperately repeats the name over and over again, terrified they won't hear him through the deafening noise. He wants to scream a million questions at them. Is the plane really gone? Did everyone actually die? Is his husband really gone forever? Is this a nightmare? But at this absolute breaking point, his throat is completely locked. He stands there like a lifeless, broken puppet, letting the staff guide him through the tragic motions.
He answers questions blankly and does whatever they tell him to do like an empty ghost. Finally, the clerk hands him a devastating piece of paper, the official death confirmation for Lin Ping-an, begging him to sign. They ask him to sign it, pushing a sheet of paper with his husband's black and white portrait right in front of his face.
He stares at the form, but his eyes blur with heavy tears, making the printed text completely unreadable. In a total panic, he grabs a random stranger nearby, desperately begging them to read it out loud for him. The stranger turns around, initially annoyed, but their anger instantly softens into deep pity once they see the tragic words written on the paper. The stranger sighs and gently tells him that his husband passed away in the tragic crash. Hearing those horrific words, a metallic, bloody taste immediately rushes up his throat as his world collapses.
His vision goes completely dark as the horrific truth burns deep into his soul. His stomach twists in painful, agonizing spasms, and he stumbles backward blindly, hitting the wall as the reality of what he did completely breaks him.
He hits a pillar and slides directly to the floor, completely broken. A raw, guttural sob escapes his throat, but honestly, it is way too late for regrets now. That hollow voice sounded terrifyingly foreign, like a cry from someone else's chest. The rest felt like a dream. Under the airport intercom, she signed for his belongings like a ghost, just debris from the crash. The police only found a tiny handful of ash on Lin Ping-an's seat, which was placed carefully in an urn. After confirming the paperwork, she numbly held Lin Ping-an's urn and walked out like a soulless doll. Airport staff offered their condolences along the way, but she didn't hear a single word they said. Dragging her heavy, lead-like feet, she slowly shuffled to her car and numbly drove back home. Arriving home, she found a crowd waiting at the door, her friends and that absolute snake, Gu Li. Even though she supposedly disliked Lin Ping-an, he was still family, so they had to show up. Meanwhile, Gu Li, who had been faking an illness in the hospital, saw the crash on the news.
The guy was celebrating. With her grandfather in a vegetative state and Lin Ping-an dead, he was golden.
He believed destiny was on his side, and marrying her was a done deal. Seeing her arrive, he acted. He rushed forward with fake tears, telling her she still had him, but she ignored him completely. She stumbled past him up the stairs. Gu Li stared at his empty hands, resentment crossing his eyes. Suddenly, a shout echoed, "Watch out, Baiwei!" Gu Li quickly looked up in surprise. Shen Baiwei's knees buckled, and she collapsed heavily onto the steps. He rushed to help, but she just numbly shook her head with completely lifeless eyes. "I am fine. Don't worry about me," she whispered. Her friends watched her with deep worry. One friend blurted out that his sudden death actually made things easier for her and Gu Li now. Others chimed in, saying she always claimed their marriage was purely business with zero actual feelings anyway. Shen Baiwei just knelt there. After a long pause, she muttered, "How could there be no feelings?" Gu Li's eyes lit up at her words. He figured she was just in shock and had temporarily ignored him. Since she didn't love Lin Ping'an, she was probably just overwhelmed by the sudden tragedy. He quickly tried to pull her up, saying she didn't even like the guy anyway. But his words struck a dangerous nerve. She snapped, glaring up and violently shoving him to the ground. "Get lost!" she screamed. When her friends rushed to defend him, she threw everyone out and slammed the door. Left alone, she collapsed onto the floor, clutching the urn while sobbing like a wounded animal.
"How could I not love you?" she wept. "I loved you so deeply in both lifetimes."
Talk about a massive plot twist. Shen Baiwei is actually a regressor too. She woke up right back at the start of their marriage, absolutely thrilled to see him again. In her past life, her neglect led to him being kidnapped and tortured by his childhood friend. She swore to protect him, but when she saw his cold, distant gaze, she realized he hadn't regressed yet. He still hated her at that point, but she couldn't accept it after loving him for 2 lifetimes. Why wouldn't he look at her? So her friends advised her to play hard to get. Her plan was simple: make him realize her worth by forcing him to bow down first. If he finally woke up and chose to cherish her, they could live happily. Otherwise, she would let go. But plans never survive reality. Honestly, she had absolutely no idea that he had also regressed. When he suddenly hugged her, crying and apologizing for his past mistakes, she was secretly overjoyed. Hearing him promise to love her properly felt like winning the lottery, but she quickly pulled away. She was terrified that he was just using sweet words to blindside her and run off again. Even when he swore he was done with his childhood friend, she decided she had to teach him a lesson. To avoid getting hurt, she threw out her gentle plan and decided to test his devotion to the absolute limit. Since he wanted to make amends, she wanted to see exactly how far he would go. So she kept up the cruel act, pushing him further and further away.
She even hired a fake lover to hurt him, forced his mother into surgery, and put him through electroshock.
She even put him on extreme rides and threatened his parents just to find Gu Li's location.
Ping'an's love was fading into total numbness, making Shen Baiwei low-key panic. Didn't he always say he loved her, though? Why couldn't he handle this tiny bit of pain? He had suffered thousands of times worse in his past life. Besides, Ping'an had framed her grandfather out of jealousy, leaving the poor man vegetative. So Shen Baiwei sent Ping'an abroad to cool off, planning to bring him back only when he behaved. Once he learned his lesson, she would confess she was reborn too, so they could start over. But her perfect fantasy shattered when Ping'an's plane crashed with 0 survivors. Shen Baiwei slapped herself in sheer regret. Why did this happen? She never wanted him dead. If she hadn't forced him onto that flight, he'd be safe. He would still be standing right in front of her. Finally, she realized she had messed up big time. When he offered to make things up to her, she should have confessed. Why use another guy just to make him jealous? But her regret came too late. Ping'an was gone forever, leaving no ashes behind as she sobbed hysterically. Crying uncontrollably, blood suddenly rushed up her throat. She spat out a mouthful of red and completely blacked out. In a long dream, Ping'an ran towards her, with eyes full of love, wrapping her tightly in his arms. He whispered his love, but as she leaned in, the dream shattered, and he turned to dust right before her. Shen Baiwei woke up screaming, finding herself on an IV drip. Beside her stood Gu Li, an assistant, and a stranger. The stranger introduced himself as Ping'an's divorce lawyer. Hearing the word divorce, her head snapped up in absolute shock. Hearing this, Gu Li's eyes lit up, but before he could speak, the assistant quickly escorted him out. The lawyer calmly pulled out a divorce certificate, breaking down the reality of what Ping'an had done. A month ago, Ping'an had requested a total clean break, leaving with absolutely nothing, no matter what happened. The lawyer added that Ping'an wanted her to know the past was gone and they should never meet again. He placed the document on the nightstand. Shen Baiwei froze, staring at it with her mind completely blank. Under the cold light, the dark red cover looked terrifying. After a long silence, she slowly reached out. Her fingers flinched upon touching it. Unlike a bright gold marriage certificate, this was a grim, blood-like crimson. The stamped edges felt incredibly sharp. Suddenly, the water cup rattled. Her hand was trembling that violently.
Those printed words burned straight into her eyes. How could they suddenly be divorced like this? In that moment, she even doubted if Ping An had actually been reborn, or if she'd imagined everything. Did he love her, or did he hate her? Her throat tightened up like she had swallowed sharp shards of ice. When did she sign the papers? Then a memory broke through the fog. There was indeed an agreement in those files. She had been too distracted by Gu Li to even look. Back then, Ping An's relieved expression made perfect sense. Now she finally got it. Ping An had checked out of their marriage a long, long time ago. The document slipped from her hand. Looking at the window, she saw her own pale, ghostly reflection staring back. Behind her, the closet was half empty. His favorite white shirts were gone, leaving only bare hangers swaying. She flipped to the date, May 23rd, the exact day she personally handed him that plane ticket. The very moment she forced him onto that flight, the government was stamping their divorce papers. Both the man she took for granted and the marriage she ruined had completely vanished from her life. The document twisted in her hands like a piece of burning metal. She gripped it until her knuckles turned white. It was just like when she desperately held his hand, begging him not to leave her. A bitter metallic taste filled her mouth as blood dripped down and her vision slowly faded to black. That stamped date kept screaming in her mind, May 23rd. She had lost him all over again. 3 days later, under a heavy downpour, the black umbrellas at the cemetery felt like a suffocating cage. Their signatures dissolved under the rain. She stared at Ping An's photo on the tombstone, completely numb inside. She had carried his ashes up the winding mountain path, every single step feeling like pure torture. Falling to her knees, she lowered the urn and used her bare hands to cover it with dirt, handful by handful. She stood there watching the workers seal the grave with cold cement, locking him away from her forever.
As she reached out to touch the cold stone, her mind suddenly slipped back to when they were 18.
That was the very first time she saw Ping An on campus. Just one look, and she was hooked. All right, so Shen Baiwei was deeply in love with our main lead, Ping An. She wrote him love poems, played sunset piano, and watched him play sports. But honestly, Ping An never had eyes for her. He only cared about his crush, Jiang Mingyou, yet she refused to give up. Eventually, their families arranged a marriage, and she finally got to marry him. She vowed to make him the happiest man alive. But he still only wanted Jiang Mingyou. All her efforts were crushed when he ran away with his crush, leading to their tragic end. They both died in a horrific fire. Now they are both reborn, giving them a second chance to fix their tragic destiny. But her toxic obsession ended up pushing him right into a corner again, eventually causing his tragic death. At this point, all light completely fades from her eyes. She remembers that in her past life, she was reborn right after he died. If she ends it all at his grave now, could she trigger another regression? Could she actually go back and save him again? Honestly, this is low-key heartbreaking to watch as she spirals. Moving like a broken puppet, she pulls out a knife from her pocket and slowly aims it directly at her own heart. Just as she is about to plunge it in, her phone suddenly rings, and the butler screams that her grandfather finally woke up. The shock makes the knife clatter to the floor. She instantly drops everything, completely forgets about ending her life, and rushes straight to the hospital like crazy. Grandpa's room is packed with shocked doctors who are calling his sudden recovery an absolute miracle as they run checks. Once they leave, Grandpa looks at her and immediately asks where Ping An is. Her chest tightens as deep, suffocating grief floods her eyes. But Grandpa is way too old to handle any shocking news. She tightly clenches her fists, trying her best to steady her voice and tell a lie. She completely hides the truth about his death, claiming she sent Ping An abroad for trying to harm Grandpa and will only bring him back once he repents. Grandpa struggles to sit up in pure rage, yelling that it's absolute nonsense because there is no way Ping An would ever try to harm him. He coughs violently in his fury, shouting that the real culprit is actually her precious little lover, Gu Li. She's completely stunned while patting his back. Ain't no way, right? She always thought Gu Li was a sweet, innocent guy who wouldn't even hurt a bug. How could he possibly try to murder her grandfather? Furious, Grandpa tells her if she doesn't believe him, she should just go check the security cameras. This triggers her memory. She did try to check the footage back then, but Gu Li cried and clung to her sleeve, swearing he was innocent. Since Ping An had a notoriously bad reputation back then, she blindly trusted Gu Li. Checking now feels completely pointless since Ping An's already gone anyway. She doesn't want to dig up the past anymore, but Grandpa fiercely insists that even if she wants to protect her lover, he deserves the truth. He threatens to investigate it himself if she refuses. Worried about his health, she quickly stops him and heads back to the villa to retrieve the tapes. But the butler reveals that the security cameras conveniently broke on the exact day of the accident. She frowns, realizing how incredibly sketchy this is. Just then, a servant cautiously approaches her, whispering that they actually have a secret backup video. Apparently, they were heading to close the window when they witnessed the entire horrifying scene unfold and caught it on camera. They hid inside a wardrobe to record it, too terrified of Gu Li's wrath to ever bring it forward, until Grandpa was finally awake to back them up. She grabs the phone and hits play. Within seconds, her smartwatch starts buzzing, warning her that her heart rate just spiked past 120. In the video, right after Grandpa closed his eyes to rest, a man in a crisp white shirt quietly sneaks into the bedroom. On his finger is the exact rare diamond ring she bought for Gu Li at a recent auction. The man turns around, and yes, it is Gu Li. There is no trace of his usual gentle, sweet act. His face is twisted with pure malice as he grabs a pillow from the couch. He violently smothers Grandpa with it, cursing that the old fossil deserved to die for trying to stand in his way. Hearing those vile, disgusting words from his mouth, her smartwatch starts vibrating violently with urgent high blood pressure warnings. The blood pressure graph spikes insanely on the screen, echoing the dread of that fateful ambulance siren. She coldly orders the butler to bring Gu Li to the villa and immediately call the police. When Gu Li arrives, she's sitting silently. The TV is looping the murder footage on a non-stop cycle, while the table is completely covered in evidence of him framing Ping An. Her assistant dug all of this up. Honestly, she already knew he was selfish, but this is a whole new level of pure evil. Realizing she repeatedly ruined Ping An's life for this complete monster makes her chest tighten with agonizing pain. Her heart rate monitor screams desperate warnings, but she sits as still as a statue, quietly waiting for her prey to walk right in. Meanwhile, Gu Li is absolutely thrilled as he approaches the door. Ever since Ping An died, she had abruptly ended their contract and kicked him out. The eviction was so sudden it left him completely blindsided, especially since he's completely addicted to living like royalty. Going back to being an ordinary nobody was his worst nightmare, but he figured she was just acting crazy because of her grief over Ping An. After all, she was so obsessed with him that she ruthlessly hurt Ping An multiple times. No shot she'd actually dump him for good. He was convinced she would invite him back eventually, and boom, the butler literally just showed up at his door to bring him home. At that moment, Gu Li is absolutely ecstatic, genuinely believing she's finally ready to move past the drama and restart their relationship.
Shen Baiwei thought she loved him and went to give him a new identity, but when Gu Li opens the villa door, he is in for a massive shock. A total nightmare. Shen Baiwei does not even look at him, just staring at the television as she coldly tells him to explain. Gu Li's face instantly drains of color, turning pale. He feels her chilling aura slice right through him. Panicking, he stammers out that all of this is completely fake and she has to believe him. He begs her to trust him, asking how he could ever do such things. Even with all the physical evidence and witnesses right there, this guy still denies it. He grits his teeth and denies everything. He knows admitting it means he is absolutely cooked, so he plays his usual victim card to gain her sympathy. He drops to his knees with teary eyes, looking as pitiful as possible while reaching for her hand, begging for mercy. But in the next second, it all backfires. Next second, she slaps him right across the face with the heavy stack of documents, the sharp edges of the paper cut deep. The paper slices his skin, leaving bloody cuts as the impact knocks him straight to the floor, while she suddenly bursts into laughter. She steps right over the scattered documents and walks over, her custom high heels ruthlessly crushing the dessert box he brought to please her. She reminds him that he was only ever a side piece, or rather just a paid actor playing a part. Lightning flashes outside as Gu Li is forced to face reality.
He looks at his reflection and realizes his perfect facade is completely shattered. He is totally ruined by the overwhelming evidence against him as Shen Baiwei slowly crouches.
She crouches down in front of him and grabs him by the throat like she is going to choke him out. In that moment, he smells her perfume. It was his absolute favorite scent. Now, it just feels like the terrifying stench of a demon from hell. He still tries to deny it, desperately grabbing her leg and begging, claiming he always followed her rules and would never betray her.
Back then, he was just an ordinary college kid, and a wealthy heiress like Shen Baiwei was completely out of his league.
So when Shu approached him to play a role, he felt like he hit the jackpot and agreed instantly, ignoring everyone who warned him. They told him she was just playing with him and it would end in tragedy, but he did not care because he was already too far gone. He had been obsessed with her for years. Ever since seeing her on television, he swore he would marry her. Everyone called him delusional for it.
But when the opportunity finally came, he seized it. Her terms were simple: act as her fake boyfriend to put on the show. At first, he behaved, but as she treated him better and better, things started to shift. Her affection for him seemed to surpass what she had for the main character. That is when Gu Li got greedy and wanted more than just being a side piece. He wanted to marry into her wealthy family. He started small, framing the main character with petty tricks, and when she did not react, he pushed further. He got bolder, eventually framing our MC for even worse things, and even causing her grandfather's death. His schemes were actually pretty basic, but because she trusted him blindly, he never worried. Plus, the only witness, her grandfather, was currently out of commission. Her grandfather was still in a vegetative state, so he thought he was safe. Now that he is suddenly exposed, he has zero excuses and can only deny. He denies everything, hoping she will just drop it, but she is not stupid. Before, she only tolerated his nonsense to test the MC's loyalty. She ignored Gu Li's antics as long as the MC did not get hurt. She had no idea her silence was just fueling his massive greed. Back then, the MC had completely given up on her and stayed silent, which made her too angry to investigate. But now, she is not playing around. She is absolutely done with him. Standing tall like the Grim Reaper, she cold-bloodedly decides his ultimate fate. She tells him to rot in prison, emphasizing that she will make sure he is very well taken care of in there. He instantly panics. He panics, his hand slipping from her dress. As he screams and begs, the sound of police sirens pierces through the heavy rain. Officers swarm the house as he desperately cries out that he only did it because he loves her and she cannot do this to him. He breaks down sobbing, suddenly remembering a night at a ball under similar lights when she held his face and promised to love him forever. Meanwhile, she calmly tells the police that all the evidence is right there on the table. As the cold handcuffs lock around his wrists, he completely breaks, asking her if she ever truly loved him these past few months. As the officers drag him away, he begs to know if there was even a shred of real feeling, but she never even looks back. She never looks back. Overnight, the entire city is shocked that she suddenly turned on the guy she adored. What an insane plot twist. She not only throws him in prison, but exposes all his dirty laundry to the news. Far away in France, our MC sees the headlines.
He is chilling at an outdoor cafe, enjoying some rose coffee while reading about the downfall of his toxic ex and her scheming partner.
Plot twist, his original flight actually crashed, and missing it was a total blessing. He cannot imagine how devastated his family would have been. Besides, in his mind, the reincarnated Shen Baiwei did not love him anyway and probably would not even care if he died. When he previously tried to test if she also regressed, she denied everything. He never understood why she suddenly turned so cold until later. During a casual chat with a friend in France, the realization finally hits him. It was pure hatred. Nobody is going to fall back in love with someone who literally caused their death in a past life. The MC knows that pain firsthand. He completely checked out, which is why he never corrected the flight logs after his close call. He figured nobody back home cared anyway. Honestly, our boy does not even care if he lives or dies. He thinks his ex-wife, Shen Baiwei, would not even blink since she loves Gu Li, not him. But today, the news drops. Every platform is flooded with emotional posts written by Shen Baiwei for her late ex-husband. They are dripping with love, absolute hypocrisy. On his dusty screen, the cold text feels like a rusty knife. prying open old memories he had buried deep. Years ago, when Shen Baiwei actually loved him, she used to write him a love letter every single day, full of passion. Honestly, it is wild how much those words still get to him. Not with warmth, but pure irony. He is just so done. If she did not love him, why deny being reincarnated? Why push him away for Gu Li and hurt him constantly? Now that he's dead, she should be celebrating. Why act regretful now? Is it guilt for sending him to his death, or did she magically realize she still loves him? Either way, it does not matter. He is done. In her eyes, he is a ghost. Keeping it that way is the best move. He scrolls down. Then, boom, another headline pops up that completely catches him off guard. Gu Li is locked up, murder and assault charges. He stares, utterly speechless, as the spoon in his hand clinks against the cup. He is shaking. It is not relief, just a delayed truth ripping open old scars. All those times Gu Li framed him flash back in a second. Total nightmare fuel. Then, the memories slowly fade. He shuts his eyes and locks his phone. He forces those dark thoughts back down. From the moment he faked his death, their drama stopped being his problem. Time to move on. He tosses the phone, downs his cold coffee, and gets ready. It is the day of the Lin family banquet. He pushes the cup away and heads out. Outside, the last autumn leaf falls. He walks out with his head held high. At the grand gates of the Lin family estate, the sunset shines like gold. He steps out of his car holding his gifts and tosses the keys to a bodyguard. No need to park, he is leaving early. The guard nods. Our boy walks up the steps and pushes open the heavy doors, cold air swirling around him. Inside, his aunt, the boss of the family, is setting down the final dish under the warm lights. She spots him and smiles. Just in time. Dinner is ready.
He hands over the gifts and washes his hands. His mom immediately serves him hot ginger soup.
Why are you dressed so thin? Drink up. She will not stop until he finishes it. His aunt agrees. He just nods and smiles until they finally let him breathe. Then the family patriarch, Master Lin, enters leaning on his cane. Time to eat. Dining here is silent, only the quiet clink of chopsticks. Our boy holds his breath. He does not want to cause trouble for his parents. After eating, his parents get called to the study. He looks worried, but his aunt gently pats his hand. She sits him down. Do not worry. Grandfather will not hurt them. He sighs. This lecture is literally a tradition at this point. He always tries to take the blame for the divorce, but Grandfather insists it was his parents who messed up. The Lins did not need that marriage. He only married Shen Baiwei because his parents pushed for it. Back then, Grandfather wanted him to marry Jiang Mingyou instead. He actually flew back just to call out the parents for settling. But they were stubborn. They would not let Grandfather take our boy away. Only the parents knew the truth about Shen Baiwei, so Grandfather left for France in anger. Eventually, after they got burned by the Shens, they fled to France. They had to apologize to make up. Grandfather wanted revenge, but our boy, remembering his past life, chose peace. He felt they were finally even. He begged Grandfather to drop it. No more contact. That was the deal. Now Grandfather lectures his parents every single time, reminding them to keep our boy safe. They just take the hit, feeling terrible. They admit they messed up by staying silent. That night, they stay at the mansion. Later, his mom knocks on his door. She saw the news. What is his move now? Lin Ping'an decides it is best to stay dead to everyone back home. Why even mess with a perfect cover story? It keeps his toxic ex from ever finding him and causing more drama. His mother totally agrees with the plan, telling him to get some rest as she finally leaves. For the next few days, his life is pure healing vibes. He just chills at the family estate, playing chess with his grandfather and chatting with his mom. Life is peaceful at the family estate until an unexpected visitor suddenly arrives. It is the butler of the Shen family, sent because Shen Baiwei has completely collapsed from all the recent drama she caused. With Shen Baiwei totally out of commission, her grandfather takes over the family affairs. The very first thing he does is send his butler all the way to France with expensive gifts to apologize to the Lin family. Since Lin Ping'an supposedly died because of her, they are totally the guilty party here. Her grandfather is not even asking for forgiveness. He just wants the Lins to go easy on her because she is already suffering. But this sudden visit catches Lin Ping'an completely off guard. Luckily, his aunt reacts instantly and shoves his family straight into the study, telling them to stay hidden upstairs no matter what chaos goes down. While they hide, the aunt heads downstairs. The butler bows low to the Lin family patriarch, offering his expensive gifts in a desperate attempt to apologize. He delivers the grandfather's words, but the Lin patriarch just sits there in icy silence, completely ignoring him. Honestly, the old man has zero time for their drama, and I love it. The patriarch does not even spare the butler a single glance as they stand in a tense deadlock. That is when the aunt steps in with a cold glare, asking why they even bothered to show up. She basically tells them they are just asking for humiliation by coming all this way. The butler has absolutely no comeback because his side is entirely at fault, so he just keeps bowing and apologizing. But the aunt waves him off. If an apology could bring her nephew back, she might care, but it cannot. She tells him to get out. Aunt warns him that the two families are completely done. If they try anything, they will find out exactly how ruthless the Lin family can be. The butler turns pale, his words completely catching in his throat. Without another glance, the aunt helps the old patriarch up the stairs. She orders the servants to throw him out immediately. While this small interlude barely phases Lin Ping'an, back home in China, the news hits Shen Baiwei like an absolute truck. When the butler reports back and repeats the aunt's harsh words, both Shen Baiwei and her grandfather turn ghost white. She is absolutely devastated by this complete and total rejection of her apology. If she were not bedridden, she would have flown to France to beg on her knees. She knew they hated her, but this is next level. Cutting off all ties is one thing, but they did not even return to China to visit his grave. Something feels off here. Our girl gets why his grieving parents stayed away, since seeing his tombstone would just cause them more pain. But his grandfather absolutely adored him. Even with health issues, it makes no sense that he did not even send someone. Even if the old man could not travel, he would have sent a representative. The fact that they did absolutely nothing is highly suspicious. She is starting to smell a rat, but she cannot put her finger on it. That is when her grandfather sighs and finally speaks up. He sighs deeply and tells her that once she heals, she needs to go to France herself. Even if they shut her out, she has to go and beg for forgiveness. Kneeling at their door is the least she can do since she caused this entire tragedy. The old man is filled with deep regret. If he had known his granddaughter would drive Lin Ping'an to his death, he never would have let them marry in the first place. Shen Baiwei just nods silently, but as soon as she goes downstairs, her assistant drops a massive bomb. Gu Li is demanding to see her. Hearing his name after all this time makes her freeze. Her mind actually has to pause for a second to remember who that even is. After throwing him into prison a month ago, she had completely wiped his entire existence from her mind. Immediately, she tells her assistant to shut it down. She does not care if that trash is dead or alive. But the assistant looks totally terrified and says he claims to have some highly crucial news about Lin Ping'an. Hearing her dead ex-husband's name makes her freeze in her tracks. After a long, heavy silence, she finally orders a car to the prison. Arriving at the prison, she stares through the thick glass at a completely broken, pale, and pathetic Gu Li wearing a bright orange jumpsuit. Honestly, he looks completely unrecognizable compared to his old self. This guy used to dress to impress just to try and please her, but prison life has absolutely wrecked his looks. Honestly, his absolute downfall is real, and you just love to see it. No sympathy here. She does not waste a single second on sympathy and demands to know what he wants. A month behind bars has definitely taught him to behave, so he gets straight to the point. He does not dare play games anymore and drops a massive truth bomb. Lin Ping'an is still alive. Hearing those words, she feels her entire world completely shatter. The words ring in her ears like sharp needles pierce in her brain. Her mind goes completely blank as she tries to process what he just said. Clutching the prison phone, she screams that she carried his ashes back herself and signed his death certificate with her own hands. How dare he lie about something like this? She is losing it. She tries to laugh it off with a cold sneer, but her voice is shaking uncontrollably. Meanwhile, Gu Li is dead serious and remains entirely calm. He explains that an airport buddy visited him and revealed something absolutely wild. On the day of the crash, another passenger with the exact same name bought 3 tickets to France.
and he looked absolutely identical to Lin Ping'an. Gu Li slides a printed photo across the glass to show her the cold, hard proof. This changes everything, guys. There it is, right in front of her. Staring back at her from the paper is the face of her supposedly dead ex-husband, clear as day. Her heart stops. There is absolutely no way she would mistake him. They were married for 2 lifetimes. She knows every detail of his face. It is him. It is definitely him. Overwhelmed by the shocking realization, she jumps out of her seat and bolts out of the prison. She sprints straight to her car, speeding towards the airport while frantically calling her assistant to book her the next available flight to France.
An absolute obsession takes over, and she has to see him right now, no matter what. She needs to ask him why he staged his death and why he abandoned her like this.
Her plan is to pour her heart out, beg for his forgiveness, and get him back. Like, girl, are you actually serious right now? Boarding the plane, she finally lands in a rainy, cold Paris. Meanwhile, Lin Ping'an is just out with some friends, completely unaware of the storm heading his way. He was just out having a good time with his friends, but suddenly his face loses all color. His hands clench in sheer terror as he hears that familiar, highly haunting voice from his past life right behind him. That familiar voice from his past accidents echoed through the downpour. Brakes screeched, cutting through the rain. Honestly, he really did not want to hear Shen Baiwei's voice right now. After all, things between them were completely over, and he had zero desire to ever see her face again. He had no idea how she discovered he was still alive, but her showing up now was pure trouble.
He immediately called his aunt at the family estate, warning her that Shen Baiwei had tracked him down and knew everything.
Hearing that he was alive made his aunt gasp on the other end. She promised to protect him and hide him. He agreed and decided to lay low, planning to warn his parents and grandfather since his cover was officially blown. Meanwhile, Shen Baiwei was rushing through the rainy streets. She wanted to head straight for him, but fate had other plans. Her grandfather called, assuming she was going to apologize to the Lin family, and advised her to buy a gift first. That actually made sense. Since she had hurt him so deeply in the past, showing up empty-handed felt entirely wrong. She detoured to a luxury shopping street in Paris, but right as she stepped out of a high-end boutique, boom! A harsh gust of wind nearly broke her umbrella. And then, just 10 meters away, under a tree, she spotted him. He was folding his umbrella, wearing the exact same gray coat he wore the very last time she saw him. Her bag slipped from her hands. Expensive perfume bottles shattered on the wet pavement, releasing a sharp, overwhelming scent. The fragrance instantly dragged her back to that devastating day at the airport 3 months ago, the grief and despair. She remembered clutching his urn, weeping her heart out, but now his living silhouette was standing right before her eyes. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the neon lights and desperately scanning the blurry faces on the moving escalator. Just as she was about to give up, a pale hand appeared at the top of the escalator, gripping a black handle. It was him! Instantly, the hope in her eyes reignited as she practically shoved her way past the busy crowd. Commuters blurred past as she frantically fought her way through the crowd, until finally she got a clear look. The station lights illuminated his face, his eyes shining like stars. Honestly, this whole sequence was beautifully directed. As the train roared in, he stepped inside. She tried to chase after him, but the warning chime rang out. The heavy doors slammed shut right in her face, and the train sped away, taking her hope with it. She stood completely frozen on the platform, unable to move, but inside her entire world was totally spinning. Her cold, dead heart was finally beating with life again. Talk about a major plot twist for her guilt-ridden soul. Even though she missed him, she finally had her answer. If she had doubted Gui Li's claims before, not anymore. Lin Ping'an was alive. She sprinted out of the station and hopped into her car, ordering the driver to rush. Meanwhile, after hanging up with his aunt, he caught a cab to the airport, booking a flight to America. While he waited in the lounge, Shen Baiwei arrived at the Lin estate, practically busting through the front doors. But the family was having absolutely none of it. They scoffed, telling her to invent a better lie next time. They demanded proof that he was alive in Paris. His aunt literally mocked her while casually sipping her tea. She realized she had completely forgotten to take a photo, but thankfully, she still had Gu Li's picture to show him. The photo showed him smiling happily with his parents, but his aunt remained completely unfazed by the image.
His aunt denied it was him, asking why she even cared when she never loved him. That hit her right in the chest.
She could not exactly explain that they both regressed, or they would call her crazy, so she just begged them to believe her.
His aunt scoffed, asking how hurting him so badly counted as love. Honestly, the aunt was spitting absolute facts here.
Shen Baiwei pleaded that she only did it because she thought he did not care, and she desperately wanted to make amends.
His aunt cut her off. If he did not love her, he would have never married her or given her multiple chances.
She had blown her chances, and now he was gone. The massive iron gate slammed shut right in her face.
She clenched her fists in frustration. She knew what she saw, even if she did not get why he was hiding.
But she was willing to wait, just like he used to wait for her back in high school. She camped outside his house for days, through freezing rain, until finally that familiar figure walked into view. Her eyes lit up as she bolted from her car, throwing her arms around him, crying that she missed him. But he just pushed her away, looking completely confused, and asked who she was. Talk about instant heartbreak. He asked if she was crazy for grabbing strangers, just as the family butler arrived to welcome him home. He scolded the butler for letting weirdos harass him, and the butler quickly stepped in, shielding him. The butler glares at Shen Baiwei, telling her to leave before he calls security. But she completely ignores him. She desperately tries to grab the cousin, begging Ping An to recognize her. The butler blocks her, saying she has the wrong guy. He is the son of the first madam, Lin Yanli. This news hits her like a truck, low-key heartbreaking. The butler sighs. He explains that Master Lin Yanli and Ping An look identical, like twins. And that guy at the airport? Yeah, that was Lin Yanli too. Ping An asked him for help before leaving, so please stop hallucinating his face out of pure grief. She refuses to believe it, screaming that he has the scar of Ping An, shoving past the butler. She tries to roll up his sleeve for proof, but boom, she gets slapped hard across the face. Lin Yanli snaps at her to see a doctor if she is crazy, ordering guards to drag her out. A bunch of bodyguards rush in and drag her away as she desperately screams the name of Ping An. Lin Yanli watches coldly before calling our MC, Ping An, who is actually alive and behind this entire drama. Ping An apologizes for the trouble. He thought the lies of his mother would make her believe he died. But she is next-level obsessed, camping outside the family estate for days without leaving. So he had his cousin play the double, which worked flawlessly since she finally stopped showing up. Now, cut to a villa in Paris where Shen Baiwei is staring at reports, looking pale as a ghost. She is losing her mind, wondering how she could mistake him when she was so sure it was Ping An. Did he really die in that plane crash? Is everything she sees just a sad hallucination? Her hope fades. Right then, her butler knocks to announce a visitor, which is super weird since she has no friends here. Walking downstairs, she spots an incredibly familiar figure on the couch and thinks she is dreaming again. But when the man stands up and turns around, she laughs at herself. It is just Lin Yanli. Lin Yanli apologizes for the chaos from the other day, but she quickly shakes her head to take the blame. She admits her behavior was totally unhinged, and they awkwardly exchange some polite pleasantries. She asks why he came all this way, and he reveals that his cousin left a final voice recording. It contains some last words for her. Lin Yanli hesitates, asking if she is ready to hear it. She nods stiffly, and as he hits play, static fills the room, followed by that long-lost voice. The voice of Ping An echoes out, "Shen Baiwei, by the time you hear this, I am probably gone. I know you regressed, but you kept pushing me away and hurting me over and over again. It made me wonder if your past life love was even real, but none of that matters now. I am about to die anyway. I was too selfish in our last life and hurt you deeply. So I guess I deserved that tragic end. This time, I wanted to make things right, but you refused. I do not hold any grudges anymore, so let us call it even. Just promise me you will live well. Do not stay stuck in the past for me. Let us never meet again." The tape ends, leaving absolute silence. After what feels like a literal century, she softly asks him to send her a copy of that recording. He nods, and before he leaves, she uses his phone to send a final reply to Ping An in heaven. Once he is gone, she curls up on the floor, playing those few words on loop over and over. Are they really not suitable when they loved each other so much but kept missing their chance?
Her knuckles turn white as she clenches her hands, her nails drawing blood that drips to the floor. Outside, a sudden storm starts howling, and freezing air sneaks in through the cracked window like a ghost.
It wraps around her, slowly breaking her spirit as memories of Ping An flood her mind in shattered pieces.
She sees him playing basketball in high school, waiting for her in a graduation suit and hugging her tightly.
And finally, him walking away with hollow eyes. She whispers to the empty room that she cannot do this.
How is she supposed to survive in a world without him? She buries her face, sobbing in despair.
Thunder cracks outside as she finally breaks down, weeping like a trapped animal in the dark all night. As the morning sun finally stops the rain, she boards her flight, leaving everything behind once again. Ping An finally listens to the voicemail. It is from his toxic ex, Shen Baiwei.
Apologizing sincerely, she admits she regressed too, but her petty resentment ruined everything. She claims she only ignored him because a friend told her to play hard to get. But when Ping An regressed and tried to love her, she let her ego take over. Testing him repeatedly, she kept hurting him, and Gu Li, he was never her actual lover. He was just a hired actor, but he crossed the line, so she threw him in prison. Behind bars is where he will rot. Still, even with her out of his life, she cannot move on. She wanted to die, but now she wants to live and atone. Her promise is to care for his parents, his friends, and his beloved garden. Even his grandfather. Once that is done, she hopes to find him in the afterlife. Begging for forgiveness, she prays they never meet in another lifetime. Click. Ping An shuts off his screen, tears finally spilling over as a storm of painful, suffocating emotions completely washes over him. Wiping them away, he tells himself this is for the best, since they were always a mistake. Honestly, he is totally right to grant her wish and completely cut her off. No more toxic loops. Goodbye for good.